Part 28. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 271. She looked at Dafu and Erlu on the side, and her heart was aching. She was reluctant to bear her youngest son, but in fact, Dafu and Erlu were the ones she was most reluctant to bear. The youngest son was just born, so there must be few feelings for her, and the child may not survive. She is more worried about Dafu and Erlu. Now she understands that love really depends on support, not born with blood. It's like the three children are her own, but because of the length of time they get along with each other, they have deep feelings. This may be cruel, but it is a fact. AncientChina and Zhou are like Xiaoqian and Manbao. Even deeper than Xiaoqian's and Manbao, because Qian's mother-in-law passed away a few years after giving birth to Zhou. Unlike Manbao, Qian and Xiaoqian shared her feelings for her mother together. Seeing that Mrs. Chen's spirit was a little better, Mrs. Qian put the child down, pressed the swaddling clothes and said, "Mi Tang is not too hungry, I will feed him a little later. If possible, I'd better go and ask for milk, it's hot when I come back. Give him a drink, and in a few days, you can try to feed him some rice porridge." Chen's mother listened very carefully. Qian was not the one who gave birth to the most children, but the one who survived the most children. Naturally, they listened carefully. Manbao immediately said, "You can also use goat milk." Qian looked down at her, and Manbao also raised his bright eyes to look at his mother, and said, "Mother, goat milk is also milk, and it is very nutritious." "That's right," she frowned and said, "goat's milk is a bit stinky. You can boil it with tea leaves and put a little bit of it." Manbao gestured, "The little nephew will be able to eat milk by then, and there is no need to look elsewhere. At present, there are no newborns in Qilai village, so they have to go to other villages to ask for milk. Even if you find another mother, you may not be able to get it, so if you can buy a sheep back, it is naturally the best. But a sheep that happens to be milking may not be so easy to find." She hesitated for a moment and then nodded, without doubting Manbao's words. One is because Manbao is a scholar, and the other is because she did not refute it. When Mother Chen saw that they had finished talking and the child was quiet, she said enthusiastically, "The sweet wine is ready, let's go out and have a bowl." He also invited Manbao and Bai Shanbao, and said with a smile, "You are children. I'll make an egg in sweet wine and boil it for you, okay? This is a reward, and of course not every child has it." Bai Shanbao doesn't think there is anything in eggs, and Manbao is the master who eats eggs every day, and asks, "Will it taste better when beaten eggs?" After receiving a nod from Mother Chen, he agreed, and followed him to the kitchen with great interest. Zhou was also in the kitchen, and someone from the village came to help, but he would occasionally go into the kitchen to take a look. When Mother Chen saw him, she took the opportunity to propose to buy a milking sheep, and she glanced at Manbao who was waiting on the side, and said in a low voice, "I think this is a good idea, goat milk is also milk. Are you fed?" Zhou heard the words and said without thinking, "Then I'll ask someone to look for it. If there is one that is breastfeeding, we'll buy one." Although a sheep is expensive, Zhou is not unable to afford it. The big deal is that he will sell it later when he needs the money urgently. Just a sheep that happens to be milking is not easy to find. Zhou was a little worried. "Mother, what do you do when you haven't bought sheep these days?" Mother Chen sighed, "Let's feed the rice soup first, Aunt Qian fed a little in just now." Zhou breathed a sigh of relief. Bai Shanbao listened and pulled Manbao's hand. Manbao also heard it. He was wondering if he should buy some milk powder for them in case of emergency. When she saw Bai Shanbao pulling her, she turned to look at him. Bai Shanbao whispered in her ear, Manbao's eyes lit up, and after the two of them had boiled eggs in sweet wine, they ran out hand in hand. Mother Chen wanted to talk to them, but there was no chance to get in touch with them. Bai Shanbao took Manbao back to look at his sheep, then took it out from the fence, and said happily, "Let's send it to him. You still need tea." Bai Shanbao gave her the rope. "Wait, I'll get it." Bai Shanbao ran away and ran back soon after, but was followed by Lu Shi and other servants. Lu Shi glanced at the sheep they were holding and said with a smile, "Newborn children can't eat tea." She said, "You are so old, you can't sleep even after eating tea, let alone such a little baby." Manbao widened his eyes. "Then what should we do?" "Boil the goat's milk directly. If you really can't drink it, put 2 drops of vinegar in it and have a look." "Does vinegar work too?" Lu Shi looked at Manbao's puzzled appearance and nodded with a smile. "Of course, there is a little bit of usefulness, but it is not as obvious as tea leaves." The 2 children had an idea, and they were content to go out and cross the river with the sheep. The servants of the Bai family were accustomed to it and did not stop him. They turned around and reported to the old lady. Only then did I know that the old lady already knew, and she even agreed. Things in the village are never a secret. Lu thinks, it is a good thing for a child to have a benevolent heart. They are just a sheep, and their family can't afford it. But for the people in the village, a sheep is too precious. When the 2 children appeared in the courtyard of Zhou Hu's house with the sheep, everyone was stunned. Mother Chen's eyes lit up, and she wanted to kneel down for the 2 children. She didn't pay much attention to Bai Shanbao, but now she couldn't help but look at him. Only then did she realize that he was wearing different clothes from all of them. Very nice. Zhou Hu also knew that this sheep must belong to the Bai family, because the old Zhou family had no sheep. So he also stared blankly at Bai Shanbao. Bai Shanbao tucked the sheep's rope to him, and waved his little hand. "My sheep is milking, so use it before you buy it." Mother Chen thanked Zhou Hu repeatedly and urged Zhou Hu to accept it. Zhou Hu hesitated for a while before taking the things and said, "Don't worry, young master, I will send it back to you when I buy the sheep." Bai Shanbao doesn't care much about this. What he wants to see more is the child, and he asks curiously, "Is he still hungry?" As soon as Chen mother heard it, she immediately took the sheep aside to milk the goat, ready to try their recipe, but when she squeezed out the milk, she realized that there was no tea. Manbao said embarrassedly, "Although tea leaves can remove the taint, it seems that little babies can't eat it, so put some vinegar to see." Mother Chen agreed without hesitation. In her opinion, it would be good to have goat milk. As for the taste, she didn't think much about it at this time. This sheep produces a lot of milk. The Bai family had already squeezed it once in the morning, but Mother Chen still squeezed out a lot. She put it in a crock pot, boiled it on the fire, carefully dripped a few drops of vinegar, and then covered it and boiled it. Manbao reminded, "You need a little fire." Mother Chen smiled at her and asked, "Little lady, does your family often cook goat milk?" "No, I haven't cooked it in my family." Manbao pointed at Bai Shanbao and said, "His family has cooked it, and the cheese is delicious." "Yeah," Bai Shanbao regretted only now, "we won't have any cheese to eat in the future." Mother Chen didn't dare to speak immediately, for fear that the young master of the Bai family would regret it. After all, he was still young, and the children always wanted to come out. She didn't know what cheese was, but it sounded like it was made of milk. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 272. Mother Chen poured out half a bowl of the boiled milk, and the fragrance of the milk wafted through the whole kitchen, even the people in the yard could smell it. Manbao and the others followed Mother Chen's ass into the main room in a series, watching her breastfeed the baby. The milk still had some taste, which was obviously different from the rice soup he drank before, so the child habitually vomited out. She couldn't feed it several times in a row. Mother Chen couldn't help but feel anxious. This milk is not good, how can it be wasted so much? Mother Chen couldn't help but press his lips and forcefully poured the milk in without taking out the spoon. Sitting aside, Qian was startled, and quickly pulled her hand away. The child was already coughing, his face was red at first, and then a little blue. He moved his hands and feet with difficulty, and then his movements became slower and slower. Manbao wasn't happy anymore. He pushed Chen's mother and picked up the child, turned around and handed it to her mother. "Mother, you hold it?" She quickly took the child, wiped off what he spit out, and gave him a gentle breath. Seeing that his movements had slowed down, he just let out a low whimper and took the spoon in Mother Chen's hand. "Feed him carefully," she said softly to the concerned Chen Shi, who got up and looked at it. Children also have temperaments. They are just like adults. When they are uncomfortable, they are naturally uncomfortable. We are adults. He is a child, nothing is good, but he is in a bad mood for sure. She said, "You also heard from the doctor, this child is holding back too much, his body is a little bad, plus he is hungry, his temper must be bigger than the average child. At this time you have to follow him, otherwise what are you doing with a newborn child? In the end, it's not yourself who suffers." "Yes," Chen Shi replied, glanced at her mother, and said, "Auntie, give him to me, I'll feed it." "No," Qian said with a smile, "you're not moving right now, and I don't have anything to do here, so what's wrong with feeding you?" Qian put a towel on his chest and carefully fed him milk, and he vomited if he vomited. Babies spit up when breastfeeding, let alone goat milk. In Qian's opinion, the Bai family sent a whole sheep. Are they afraid that the child's milk will not be enough? She patiently followed the child to play the game of "you feeding me vomit." Compared with adults, most children can't compare. Sure enough, he didn't know whether it was because he was tired and didn't want to vomit anymore, or he was too hungry to bear it. He took a bite, and then he didn't vomit anymore. At this time, the half bowl of milk also bottomed out. Mother Chen looked at the half-wet towel with a heartache, but when Qian looked over, she still went to the kitchen and poured another half bowl. She finished feeding him. The child was still smacking his mouth, but she didn't feed him anymore. Such a young child doesn't have much appetite, but he needs to be fed frequently, and he will be fed again after an hour. Zhou came in from outside and asked with concern, "Did he drink it?" She carefully wiped off the milk stains on his body and said with a smile, "Drink it down." Zhou breathed a sigh of relief, looked down at the younger son, then at his wife, and said, "This child will be called Sanchao in the future, and he will be in the lower row with his brothers." This is the name they thought of for their child. It was thought of when Daifuku was born. It can be used whether it is a son or a daughter. But since the child was born, he has not decided on a name because he, like the doctor, thinks that the possibility of the child surviving is very low. If you don't survive, of course there's no need for a name. But now that the child is drinking milk, the hope of survival is even greater. Qian has raised many children and is very good at taking care of children. Even though Chen is already a mother of 2 children, he is far inferior to Qian in this respect. So the husband and wife listened to her advice very seriously. When she was about to leave, Zhou filled her a large pot of sweet wine and asked her to take it back to eat. He grinned, "Auntie, this sweet wine nourishes the blood and warms the body. Take it back and give it to brother Dallin to taste." Zhou Dallin had internal bleeding during a fight some time ago, and he has been recovering at home. Qian did not refuse and accepted it. Manbao volunteered to carry it. Of course, she couldn't carry it alone, so Bai Shanbao helped her. She was not really helpless, so he picked up the basin directly from the 2 of them, glanced at them and said, "Go home quickly." Zhou also wanted to send some sweet wine to the Bai family, but he felt that this thing was too cheap, and it was not easy to send it for a while. Qian's family was not sensitive to other people's affairs, so he led the 2 children back to Lao Zhou's house without realizing it. She couldn't help complimenting her 2 children. Of course, she focused on Bai Shanbao. She immediately touched his little head and smiled, saving one life is better than building a 7-level Buddha. If you get lucky, there will always be blessings in the future. Bai Shanbao looked at Qianxi with bright eyes. The liveliness of Zhou Hu's house lasted for a day. Relatives and friends came to see Chen's family and the children today. They gave rice, noodles, and eggs. After the etiquette was completed, they all dispersed. Work to do. Mother Chen stayed to take care of Chen's family. There was no way. Zhou Hu's parents passed away 2 years earlier, and there was no one to take care of Chen's family at home. Man Bao and Bai Shanbao felt that they had a relationship with Sanchao, so they often went to their house to see him after school. Chen was still lying on the bed and couldn't move, but Sanchao grew at a speed visible to the naked eye. First, his complexion became less pale. It is said that he eats a small bowl 8 times a day, then the redness and wrinkles on his face disappeared a little, and his facial features became clearer, densely. Once he urinated, he burst into tears, and although it didn't frighten Man Bao, his voice was a lot louder. Because of this, although Chen Shi was still lying down and couldn't get out of bed, the smile on his face also increased. Man Bao was attracted by this little doll and left Poria behind. It was still one day when Thursday Lang came back limping with a basket of wild mushrooms. Only then did she know that the family had never been able to find it again. Poria, but the wild mushroom business is doing well. Clearly, though, the business is taking a hit now, too. Chu Hulang was very angry and put down the basket and said, although the mountains have been divided, unless there is good wood or something that you have grown by yourself, you have never heard of the wild game in this mountain that belongs to one family. The two of them are better. Just chase us with a hoe. Fortunately we ran fast, otherwise they would snatch all the things in the bag. Wu Wulang was also very angry. The fourth brother fell behind with something on his back and fell. Fortunately, he didn't break his bones, otherwise they would look good. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 273. Thursday Lang couldn't help staring at him. You still have the guts to say, you run fast in front of you empty-handed, leaving me behind. Where are you empty-handed? I'm clearly carrying a hoe. Wu Zhoulang said, I told you to run away first, but who told you to turn back and quarrel with people? Didn't you see how many of them? Man Bao sat aside, turned his head to look at this, then turned to look at that, watching with relish. Old Zhutu didn't find it interesting. He stretched out his hand and patted his thigh to calm his 2 sons, and then asked, why are they chasing you? Did they know that you went into the mountains to dig for tuckahoe? I don't know, said Thursday with certainty. I have asked them, and they are jealous that we are looking for wild mushrooms in the mountains. Otherwise, he wouldn't be stupid enough to turn around and quarrel with people. He glanced at the old fifth with contempt, and felt that he belonged to the type of person who was so stupid that he didn't know why he was beaten. Second brother is selling vegetables in the county town. I don't know who saw it in Dali village. He sells 20 cents per pound of wild mushrooms, which is more expensive than meat. When I go back and pass it on, I don't know who told the two of them, saying we searched for wild mushrooms on their mountains, and then we went up the mountain to chase us. In fact, they didn't find wild mushrooms every day these days. The main thing is that this thing grows fast and falls fast. It rained yesterday, but it can basically grow out today, and then if no one is found in a couple of days, it will drop its umbrella by itself. Even if it is found, it is old and not tasty. Tuesday Lang is expensive, but it also has high quality requirements, and bad wild mushrooms will not be sold in the county. Those rich people are very particular. They don't mind that wild mushrooms are more expensive than meat, but they must mind that wild mushrooms are not tasty. But Joe has a lot of family members, and he has a lot of experience in this area, especially Zhou Lang. When it comes to finding things in the mountains, none of the Zhou brothers are as good as him. Man Bao, who always has adventures, might catch up with him. But the nature is also different, because Man Bao is looking for things they don't know, relying on rich knowledge. Few people from Qilai village enter the city. Although they know that the Zhou family is growing and selling vegetables, they don't know how much money they can make. Not to mention other businesses. So there's no such thing as jealousy, and even if you were jealous, you wouldn't be able to do such a thing. But it's different in Dali village. There is a village across the street, and there have been fights. Who cares about your face? So hurry up. Old Zhou Tiou was so angry that he knocked his bong several times, but after brewing for a long time, he still gritted his teeth and said, "Don't go to the mountains in the future, didn't you find Poria?" "I didn't find Tukaho, but I found wild mushrooms," Shiro Lang said anxiously. "Dad, I can't say that I can find 10 or 8 pounds from there every day, but as long as you go deep, you can find a 5 caddies is not a problem, but 5 caddies of wild mushrooms are worth $100. Thursday Lang is too good at arithmetic now, let's give him the arithmetic. 1 day is 100 pennies, and that's $3 a month. How much food do you need to grow?" Old Zhou Tiou gave him a sideways look and said, "Take it down, bully your father, I can't read, right? In this kind of day, you can let the gods rain and grow mushrooms for you every day." Thursalo bowed his head. Although old Zhutu was also heartbroken about the loss of this part, he still had reason. He snorted and said, "The sickle is about to open, even if there are mushrooms in the mountains, we can't find them anymore. Fighting with people at this time is too bad for my family. It's not enough." Thursday Lang was not convinced. Is that the case? Lao Zhou bowed his head and did not speak, but his attitude was obvious. Thursday Lang was very angry, and Wu Wu Lang was also very angry. The two of them, when they were playing with their friends in the village, were almost like children. Then they were afraid of their father, and although they couldn't swallow it, they didn't dare to say anything, and they didn't even dare to fight with people from Dali village in private. Because a fight like this will definitely call a brother, but as long as you call a brother above the third brother, it is basically impossible to hide this from your father. The two sighed and went to the next courtyard. The old Zhutu said to Fang's family, "Go to your mother's place to get the medicinal wine and wipe the fourth one. It's not raining today, and there won't be any mushrooms tomorrow. Let him go into the mountain and make some good mud with his big brother and the others." Man Bao had already sneaked into the house behind Shiro Lang's ass, and asked curiously, "Fourth brother, did you really find Fu Ling?" "No," said Thursday Lang unhappily, "we searched through all the pine stumps that were cut down on the mountains, and we didn't find a single Poria cocos." Man Bao thought thoughtfully, "Isn't the growing condition a pine stump?" Shiro squinted his eyes at her. "Isn't it what you said? Is it the spirit of the pine tree, God, essence, or something like that?" "Yeah," Man Bao blinked and said, "but it's not from a pine stump." Thura. The two brothers and sisters looked at each other, and after a while, Shiro wanted to reach out and pinch her, but Manbao ran to the door to avoid him. Thursday Lang wanted to beat the bed for a long sigh, and said bitterly, "Do you know how much money we lost by delaying us these few days?" The former second brother took all the remaining Poria to the shopkeeper Zheng, a total of 11 pounds and 7 taels, exchanged for come back with 920 pennies, if we can find Poria these days. Shiro's saliva was about to flow down. Manbao slammed the door and said, "It's impossible. You think that the medicinal material is Chinese cabbage? We have been looking for Ligustrum lucidum. It's been 2 years, eldest brother, didn't they just find 5 trees?" Manbao said, "I didn't grow it at home, I can use as much as I want." Shiro was originally remorseful. Hearing this, he tilted his head and said, "Yeah, why can't we grow it at home, just like growing ginger. Manbao asked, "Do you have any land?" Thursday Lang fell silent for a while. There are rigid regulations on what to grow in Yanjai field, which was divided by the imperial court. It is best to grow rice and wheat, and edible beans and sesame can also be grown in fields that cannot be grown. Chang Ye turned one eye and closed one eye, but if he dared to plant other messy things in the ground to occupy the fertile fields, it would be a very serious matter. Ginger can also be grown, and yam can also be eaten, even if it is barely qualified. But poria, obviously, can't be stewed directly in a pot like yam. Both brothers and sisters pondered. Keek met and wanted to tell these two that poria is not something you want to plant. You can plant it if you want. Have you mastered the planting skills? Now, even the researchers at the other end of the encyclopedia have not cultivated poria, so where did you two brothers and sisters have the confidence to grow poria? Do you know how poria is grown? Anyway, Coco didn't know. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 274. It was obviously difficult to let Thursel Lang take a breath like this, mainly because his fall was a little serious, because it rained just yesterday, and the soil under the weeds was slippery. He turned around and quarreled with people, and they chased after him. He was in a hurry, he took a shortcut and wanted to make a big leap. As a result, before jumping up, he just stomped on his butt and sat on the ground and slid down. Fortunately, if he jumped up and fell, it would be fatal. Thursday Lang himself had lingering fears, but the pain in his buttocks and waist was enough to make him unable to let go. When Mr. Fang brought the medicinal wine, he saw the two brothers and sisters lying on the bed and the other hiding behind the door, talking all over the distance. She looked at Lang Jun first, and then asked Manbao, "Why don't you go in?" Manbao took the opportunity to complain, "The fourth brother will beat me." Mr. Fang glared at Thursday Lang. Thursday Lang held onto his waist and shouted, "Did I do it?" Moved. On Thursday, Lang thought, he really moved, he just didn't hit anyone, so he lay on his stomach and didn't say a word. Mr. Fang understood as soon as he heard it. He brought Manbao into the room, and then directly picked up Shiruro's clothes and stripped his pants, so frightened that Shiro almost jumped up from the bed. He hurriedly grabbed his pants and said, "Young sister is still there." Fang Shi was a little embarrassed and smiled at Manbao, but still insisted, "Manbao is reading a medical book, let her have a look, what if she hurts a bone?" Thuro was not happy. Manbao felt that the fourth sister-in-law was right. She said, "You wait, I will go back and get the book." Manbao is very interested in medicine now. She has read most of the complete Yellow Emperor's classic of internal medicine. Although she still does not understand most of the content she has read, through her discussions with Keek, she knows that there are more details in the encyclopedia. Divided books. Manbao didn't go to get the complete Yellow Emperor's internal classic, but directly asked Keek to buy a book that she had been interested in and searched for a long time. It is called Basics of Orthopedics, which is said to be a book written by a famous professor of orthopedics in the 22nd century of the Earth era. He studied Chinese medicine, and advocated the diagnosis and therapy of combining Chinese and Western medicine. For this reason, he even went to the front line of chaos as a volunteer doctor. Manbao already knew that the development of medicine in the future is beyond her reach, because even if they rely heavily on traditional Chinese medicine now, it is not the same as they simply boil medicines now. According to Keek, they all directly extract the parts they need from the medicines, or they need to refine the medicines that are more specific to the disease. In contrast, Keek recommended her to use traditional Chinese medicine before the 23rd century of the Earth era. Although it is somewhat different from the modern medicine, it is within her learning ability. Many days and nights, Manbao has secretly done investigations and homework in the system. She trusts Keek very much, so she can listen to its opinions. Because in her opinion, Keek is a very powerful person. he is looking down at them from the history of 10,000 years later, just like she is looking at the ancients thousands of years ago from the history that she has read. Manbao exchanged the points for the book, asked Keek to scan the book, and then asked her brother's current situation to apply to the diagnosis and treatment methods written in the book. Keek needs to pay for scanning the sick body, but scanning books, especially the books produced by the encyclopedia, is routine. What's more, he has included the data of this book when he finds it out, so without moving the data, it said, the first 26 to 31 pages. Manbao immediately turned to the 26th page and read it through quickly. Very good, I didn't understand most of it, but it didn't matter. The diagnosis and treatment steps written on it seemed to be very simple, and she still understood it. Manbao went with the book and ran to find the fourth brother. Chu Lang's pants were torn in half by Fang, and he was covering it with a quilt. He was fighting for it, but the effect was not obvious. When he saw Manbao running over, he buried his head in the pillow and did not want to lift it up. Although they are brothers and sisters, although Manbao is not big, he doesn't mind looking at Manbao's ass, and he can even let him shower Yaomei. After all, the other party is not yet 7 years old, right? However, but now that he is bare ass, he is very troubled. On Thursday, Lang was lying on his stomach and pretended to be dead, and the jar was broken, but Mr. Fang was very happy and waved to call Manbao. To her, it doesn't matter. When her cousin was 8 or 9 years old, she liked to bathe in the yard. Look at your fourth brother. It's very green. I feel a little hard when I touch it. When I poke him, it hurts. This bone won't break, right? Manbao put the book aside, looked at it first, and found that the upper part of the buttocks connected to the left back waist was indeed a large area of blue, and there were some scars, which should have been scraped by branches, stones, etc. Manbao carefully looked down at the book, then followed the steps in the book and reached out to press his wound, asking, "Does it hurt?" Thursday Lang said angrily, "Of course it hurts me to death." Manbao panicked, "Does it really hurt?" Thura. Manbao hurriedly went to poke another place and asked, "Does it hurt here?" "It hurts, it hurts." Manbao went to touch the surrounding area of the bruise and asked, "Where is it, does it hurt?" Without a pause, Thursday Lang shouted, "It hurts, it hurts." Manbao panicked now, his hand had moved to the back of his right waist, and asked, "Where is it?" "It hurts, it hurts." Manbao cried now, looked at Mrs. Fang anxiously and said, "Sister-in-law 4, brother 4th seems to be dying." Mrs. Fang, "Manbao, don't scare the 4th sister-in-law." With the lively appearance of Shiro, how could he tell that he was about to die? It's about to die. It's all said in the book. The 4th brother is bleeding heavily inside. It's no longer an ordinary fall. The bones must have been broken. The injured area hurts, and the surrounding area also hurts. Isn't it about to die? The book says it's dangerous. Fang was also a little flustered, but vaguely felt that something was wrong, so she went to grab the next door of Shai Zilang, pulled the man's head up, and then looked at his face carefully. "Look at Manbao, is your 4th brother turning blue, white?" Manbao also learned to look, hear, and ask, and hurriedly crawled over to take a look. After looking at it, he wondered, "No, it's very rosy, and it doesn't look like someone who is about to die." Fang. Thura. Coco. Manbao went straight to scratch his eyelids, took a look at his eyes, then scratched his mouth to look at his tongue, and then looked at his rosy lips. Manbao was a little silent. Keek held back a smile and said, "Host, you have to learn to judge whether what the patient says is true or false, and you can't believe what the patient says. It means that Thuro was lying." Manbao was a little angry, slapped the bed with a slap, stared at Shiro and asked, "4th brother, where is your pain?" Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 275. Where else can it hurt? My entire buttock and lower back hurt. Didn't you see that they were all green? Shu Yulang was still righteous. He tried his best to look back, and then he lay on the pillow again and said, "Yes, it really hurts. You quickly ask your fourth sister-in-law to rub the medicine bar for me." No. Manbao confiscated the medicinal wine and said, "Even if you want to rub it, you will have to rub it tomorrow night. This medicinal liquor can promote blood circulation and remove blood stasis. Even if you don't have broken bones or internal bleeding, the capillaries will definitely bleed. Otherwise, it won't turn blue like this. At this time, you have to use well water to ice it, and then rub the medicinal wine tomorrow." Thursday Lang was a little unconvinced. Is this still possible? "I remember that my family always rubbed the medicinal wine as soon as I fell." "That taste?" Manbao persisted. Since she was holding a book, although Shi Zuolang and Shi Fang were dubious, they still decided to listen to her. Then Mr. Fang hesitated. "Manbao, did your fourth brother have any broken bones? You said internal bleeding. Why don't you go to the big set and find the old doctor to take a look?" Manbao said, "Of course it's the best, but internal bleeding is impossible. Look at the fourth brother's face, look at his lips, and you know that he can't have internal bleeding, but the bones may be broken. Thursday Suro, you can't expect me a little bit, okay?" Manbao snorted. Mrs. Fang went to pull him. "While it's still light, let's go to Daji. If it gets dark, we'll stay at my parents' house at night." "Don't go." Shu Yulang pressed his bed hard, and said, "People who ask for money to see a doctor are just squatting and squatting. Who would go to see a doctor? Didn't you say it hurts badly?" "That's lying to you." Fang Shi was dubious. There was nothing he could do. Shu Yulang said too many lies, and most of them came with his mouth open, with a calm expression on his face. She really didn't know which of his words was true and which of his words was false. Thursday Lang reached out and hooked her finger, and whispered, "Don't go, we only have a little money on us. After a while, you have to take a look." Manbao turned his head to look at Mrs. Fang. "Sister-in-law 4, haven't you seen the doctor yet? Brother number 4 told you that you were pregnant." When Mr. Fang heard the words, he realized that Thursday's big mouth had already been publicized, and he couldn't help reaching out and pinching his waist. With a groaning sound, Shu Yulang clutched his waist and dared not move. Manbao giggled when he saw it, extremely happy, and the depression of being deceived was finally much better. But she didn't plan to let Thursaluo go. She spent her points to buy a book for him. Of course, she had to study it carefully, otherwise she didn't know when the next person would fall and get injured. And apart from her own family, outsiders are probably reluctant to see her doctor. Thinking of this, Manbao rolled up his sleeves and continued to hold the book and said, "Fourth brother, don't move, I'll show you a serious look. This time you have to answer honestly what I ask you. If you ask again, dare to lie to me." Manbao hummed, "I'll go tell Dad that you bullied me." Thuso snorted out of fear. Manbao continued, "Our family is going to plant winter wheat this year, and it's time to sell ginger and yam, hum." Zhou Hulang immediately lay down and said softly, "Manbao, look at it, what do you ask the fourth brother? The fourth brother will tell you, remember to say a few good words for me at your father's place." He is not afraid of full treasure. But he was afraid that Manbao would talk to his father. The work at home is arranged by the father and mother, especially the work in the field. Basically, whoever does anything is the father's word. If Manbao suggested on the side, to the extent that Dad spoiled Manbao, he would definitely listen to Manbao. At that time, the old fifth and the sixth go into the city to sell ginger and make money easily, and he may be pulling the rope and plowing in the field. Just thinking about it made him feel bad. Seeing that the fourth brother was obedient, Manbao was satisfied, so he said to Mrs. Fang, "Sister-in-law 4, go and fetch some well water and apply it to the fourth brother in a while." Mr. Fang responded in a daze, and turned to fetch water. Applying cold compresses is also correct, at least not wrong. Generally, if you fall, or fight with bruises, it is basically cold water first, then hot water, but those are people who have no medicinal wine at home. Basically, if there is medicinal wine at home, they are directly rubbed with medicinal wine. Who would bother to apply cold water? Man Bao re-examined Shiro according to the book. This time Shiro didn't dare to make a fuss, and answered honestly whether it hurt or not. A quarter of an hour later, Man Bao lay on the bed again, tilted his head to see his face, and after looking at him for a long time heaved a sigh of relief, waved his small hand, and said with certainty, "It's okay, it's just a contusion, Man Bao glanced down at the book, then raised his head and said, "The cartilage tissue is bruised, the bones are not damaged, and there is no internal bleeding." Thursday Lang, I already knew it was a contusion, but you didn't know it until you studied it for a long time. Of course, Shiro did not dare to say this, but what is cartilage tissue? Of course Man Bao wouldn't tell him what it was. She reached out and rolled up her sleeves and said, "Come on, let me apply cold water for you." Thursday Lang resigned and lay on the bed. Man Bao took care of his first patient with great interest, and said to Keek, "Treatment is still very fun, very happy, just as happy as making a problem arranged by Mr. Keek looked at the host's points, hesitated and asked, "Does the host like medicine?" Man Bao's brain replied excitedly, "Yes." This is a bit beyond Keek's expectations. It feels that the host can read more, be knowledgeable, so that he can go farther in the future and live better, so that he can have more energy, time, and ability to collect more biological specimens. It seems that the host, who has not yet reached the age of 7, has already chosen the future direction of development. This is a bit beyond Keek's service experience, because in the past, the hosts it encountered were adults. Although there were always problems of one kind or another during the counseling process, the direction of the host's career development was the least of his worries. One is that at the time of binding, the host already had a career direction, the other is that the host is an adult, what to do or not to do is his freedom, and the system will generally not interfere. But Manbao is different. She is too young, and it has always thought that her current task is to read more and learn more contemporary survival skills so that she will have enough ability in the future. But if she is interested in medical skills, given the characteristics of this era, it seems that she is about to start learning. The system glanced at the host's points again, and the data in the chip was passed over and over again, and finally suggested, "Host, if you decide to study medicine, I suggest you use the teaching room in the system." I locked 6,000 words in the Great God Code. I expected to be able to write it before 12 o'clock, but I couldn't finish it. Then I locked myself and panicked, so I needed a monthly pass to calm the nerves at this time. Come, who still has a monthly pass, come and give me peace of mind. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 276. Manbao asked, "Is it the same as the simulated display? Can you simulate the selected text?" When Manbao wanted to know how to grow yam, he used this function once. Keek said, "There is an essential difference. The teaching room is more like the welfare of the encyclopedia to the host." It said, "In the future, there are many ways for intelligent creatures to learn knowledge. Buying books and tutorials in the encyclopedia is the easiest one. The teaching room is the tutorials in the encyclopedia." Keek said, "If the host wants to learn medical skills, he can't just rely on his own reading and self-study. Using the teaching room is the most efficient method." Manbao glanced down at her fourth brother and asked, "Can an injury like my brother be learned quickly?" If the host chooses to study the book Basics of Orthopedics, it will be learned very quickly. Is the teaching room expensive? How many points does a book cost? It's calculated according to the teacher's time, Keek said. All the books in the encyclopedia can be searched for those that have been explained by the teacher. The price is calculated based on the value of the class, the length of time and other comprehensive factors. Yes, not necessarily. Coco paused for a moment and said, so I suggest that the host purchase the lifetime use right of the teaching room. This is a preferential privilege only the host who is bound to each time and space has. Once purchased, no matter what the host wants to study in the encyclopedia in the future. Courses are available, and there will be no further fees. Manbao rolled his eyes and asked, is it okay if I want to learn what you said about people in the future flying around in the sky? Keek laughed, yes. But what's the use? If you learn to fly an aircraft, you must have an aircraft, right? If you learn to build aircraft, then you have to learn mechanics, materials, sensory nerves, and chips. But even if you learn the above list, you will not be able to make it, because everything is not available in this era. If you want to make it, you have to learn it later, which belongs to the historical development of each subject. And go back at least 6,000 years. Therefore, many hosts, even if they get the system, unless it is very close to the time and space where it is located, or is in a remote area of this time and space, few people can use the technology in the encyclopedia. The main system and the group of intelligent creatures that control the main system are never afraid of the technology in the encyclopedia being learned. Because the really advanced part is never in the encyclopedia, and it is not something they can learn by getting the information. As a system that has had several hosts and half of it succeeds and fails, how to guide the host to choose the correct development direction has become its most important task. No way, although its main data only includes the task of including scarce creatures, but it has experienced several hosts and knows that in order to complete this task, it must ensure that the host is alive, well alive, and capable of living. So to a certain extent, the former still exists depending on the latter, just as it exists depending on the host. So Keek quickly dismissed Manbao's idea of learning such unrealistic high-tech, but still told her that she could learn, as long as the relevant class hours were recorded in the encyclopedia. Then I searched for tutorials. Can I not buy the book? Keek couldn't help but smile in his reply. He said, of course you can. If you don't have a textbook you can understand it? Manbao came excitedly and asked, how many points do you need? Because it is a discount for each host, it only needs 18,000 points. Manbao. Keek continued, but I'm doing the Star Alliance Piece 499 activity recently, and the encyclopedia also has a half-price discount. If you want to buy it, I will report to the main system, so that you can also enjoy this discount. That's only 9,000. Integral. Manbao felt that it was expensive, so he pouted and said nothing. Keek said, host, this is a privilege that no intelligent creatures in the future can enjoy. Think about it, how many class hours and knowledge are there in an entire interstellar encyclopedia? Electric shock sticks cost 100,000 points, but a classroom that includes these courses is only 9,000 points. Manbao felt that it was not expensive now. She tilted her head and thought about it, as if reading was indeed expensive. Okay, but why is the stun stick so expensive? Keek said, because it is a weapon, and it is a weapon far beyond the technology of this era. It said, don't forget, I belong to the encyclopedia, and one of the main functions of the encyclopedia is to spread knowledge. Therefore, it is so friendly to the hosts of each system to learn knowledge, and from Keek's point of view, it is the most valuable for Manbao to learn knowledge from the encyclopedia. Because the knowledge in this world is too precious, and the knowledge in the encyclopedia is too rich. Even the most profound clan in the world, his collection of books and knowledge is far less than that of an encyclopedia. If people in this era know that Manbao has such convenience, They still don't know how to hate it. Because of her status as a poor family, she has acquired a cultural heritage that is beyond the aristocratic family. That's what people have accumulated for thousands of years. At this time, Man Bao knew nothing. She was in pain and surprise. Painful because of the 10,000 reward points that I just got. I went to 9,000, and I was surprised by the arrangement of the teaching room. The action of the system is very fast. After Manbao was determined, Keek quickly obtained the consent of the encyclopedia, sold the teaching room to Manbao with a 50% discount, and then took a lot of commission from it. Cough. Cough. Of course, there is no need to tell Manbao about this. Manbao bid farewell to the drowsy Thursday Lang, returned to his room, and sank his consciousness into the teaching room to play. The layout of the teaching room is a bit like the classroom of the school, but it is not very similar. Because there is only one table and one chair in a classroom, in addition to a table on the podium, there is a black thing on the wall. Boxy. Because the four walls are all white, the whole black piece is a bit conspicuous. Manbao looked at it curiously for a while, and then stepped forward and poked it curiously. He found that it was a hard wall, so he went back and sat down. Keek said, "The host can choose courses to study at this time." A search box appeared in front of her eyes, and there was a line of vertical text next to it, the books she had purchased, some bright, some gray. Manbao found that the gray ones were all kinds of good-looking storybooks she bought, such as the historical scumbag recommended by Keek. Keek explained, the bright ones indicate that the encyclopedia contains relevant courses, and the gray ones do not. Manbao was curious, why are there no storybooks? Keek, it's for entertainment, and it's still in vernacular. How else do you need to explain it? Didn't the host understand those storybooks? Understood. Look, even a 7-year-old can read it. What kind of teacher do you need? Manbao felt that Keek was right. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 277. However, the host can listen to the story. It is recommended that the host search for the history category. There are many stories there for you. History, Manbao's heart moved. Is there our history? No, Keek said, the time and space we are currently in is not in the records, at least not in the development process of the interstellar where I am. And it came here because of the turbulent flow of space. However, there are always similarities and laws in the development of history. If the host is interested, you can read more history, but since you are interested in medical skills, you should study more medical skills, right? Keek said this, actually a little happy. Study in medicine is not bad. After the host has mastered it, you can go out to practice medicine in the future. Don't you have an identity called a wandering doctor in this era? That is, you can go anywhere to treat diseases. There are many places to go, and you can always encounter plants that you have never seen before. When the time comes, you can always dig and hoe. Manbao's heart also heated up and asked, is Yi rich? It should be very rich. Keek's data became active, and said, in your day and age, seeing a doctor is expensive, and taking medicine is also expensive, so doctors should be very rich. Manbao felt that he was right, and his eyes lit up. Then I will study medicine seriously. If I don't have enough points to buy medicine for my mother, I can also treat my mother. Mother's medical book. Keek, the host mother's symptoms are not single, it's a bit complicated, wait for me to search. In this search, more than 20 books were found. This is still under the circumstance that it limits ancient Chinese medicine and modern Chinese medicine. If it is not limited, there will be more books. It said somewhat uncertainly, when the host learns these medical books, it should be able to know. Fortunately, the books it searches are all lit, that is to say, all have course income, and Manbao can learn through courses. Manbao was very happy. After thinking about it, she first lit up the basics of orthopedics. She felt that since the fourth brother was injured, the ready-made reference was here, so of course, she should learn orthopedics first. As soon as she opened the door, a person suddenly appeared on the podium. With a ho sound, Man Bao fell back and fell directly to the ground. Man Bao was instantly ejected from the system. Coco. Man Bao, who was lying on the bed, suddenly kicked his legs, rolled over from the bed to the ground with a slap, and fell face down. After a while, there was a cry from Man Bao's room. Shiro, who was already drowsy asleep in the next room, woke up with a jolt, but he didn't care about the pain in his butt, so he jumped out of bed, grabbed a piece of clothing, and ran to the side. When he rushed into the room, he saw Man Bao sitting on the ground with his arms in his arms and crying. For a moment, he stepped forward and asked, "What's the matter with you?" Man Bao stretched his arms forward and cried, "It hurts, fourth brother, I hurt so much." The old Zhou family was cooking dinner, and the little Jian family was in the vegetable garden. Unfortunately, the old Zhou family's vegetable garden was right behind their house. Hearing Man Bao's cries, the little Jian family raised his voice in the vegetable garden and asked, "What's wrong with Man Bao? Fourth, fifth, sixth, where have you all gone? You must know that Man Bao seldom cried." Chu Yulang replied, and pulled Man Bao up, angry and funny, fell off the bed. Man Bao cried and nodded, "It really hurts." On Thursday, Lang blew on her perfunctorily and said with a smile, "It won't hurt if you blow it." Man Bao choked for a moment and felt it carefully. It didn't seem that the pain was really bad, so he wiped his tears with his other hand. Thursday Lang teased her, "You cry when you fall out of bed. Are you ashamed?" In life, who hasn't fallen out of bed while growing up? Thursday Lang never cried. He felt that he was better than Man Bao, so he took her hand and said, "Okay, don't be bored at home all the time, go out for a walk, and play with your friends. Is it because they don't take you to play? Come back." The fourth brother beat them up. Shai Zulang limped and led Man Bao to the compound, and Mrsgn also poured all the vegetables in the vegetable garden back. When he came back, he first looked at Man Bao's face, then looked at Shi Lang. "You bullied him. Are you full?" Chu Yulang couldn't help but complain, "Sister-in-law, am I that kind of person? When did you see me bullying Man Bao to cry? She bullied me and cried." Little Qian thought about it too, he didn't have the courage, or his father-in-law would kill him. Then she looked at Man Bao and asked, "Why is Man Bao crying?" Man Bao lowered his head and said nothing. Thursday Lang laughed so hard, she fell off the bed herself. "I rushed over when I heard the sound, ha 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 ha," fell off the bed. Xiao Qian was also a little funny, but Shiro couldn't make him laugh like that, so he slapped him on the shoulder and shoved him away. In the evening, Mr. Feng cooks. Man Bao said sullenly, "Sister-in-law, I want to eat the food you cook." Mrsgn glanced into the kitchen and found that Mrs. Feng had just cooked a dish, so she washed her hands and said, "Okay, sister-in-law will cook it for you." So Xiao Qian took Feng's hand. Feng Shi couldn't ask for anything, he was extremely happy, and the good mood continued until he was full. The Lao Zhou family never wastes food, so the meals they cook can basically be eaten every night. Nonsense, country people, neither do banquets, nor are they rich landlords, who still have leftovers. But there was only one dish left on the Zhou family's dinner table tonight, and it was the one that Feng made. Except when someone tried it with a pair of chopsticks, everyone didn't eat it. Just staring at other dishes to eat, they even finished eating. Feng Shi too, just picked up a chopstick and cooked the dishes by himself. At first, he didn't think there was anything, but now he was in a bad mood. She turned her head to look at Tuesday. On Tuesday, Lang was shocked and immediately put down the bowls and chopsticks and said, "Father, Mother, I'm full." Old Zhuto let out a hum, he didn't take any vegetables, he ate the rest of the rice and put it down. Feng's eyes swept across the people at the dinner table, and seeing that everyone put down the dishes, she could only look at Man Bao, who was still eating. Feng Shi smiled slightly, picked up the chopsticks and gave Man Bao a dish with chopsticks, and said with a gentle smile, "Man Bao, eat more vegetables, and the vegetables will grow faster." Man Bao whispered, "I have some food, second sister-in-law, I don't want to eat it." There were quite a few vegetables in her small bowl, all of which were placed by Qian and Xiao Qian for her. Feng Shi sighed a little sadly, and was about to say something, but felt that Man Bao's actions were not right. She frowned, looked at it for a while before asking, "Man Bao, how do you hold your chopsticks like this?" Man Bao's tears rolled in his eyes, but he still held back from crying. My hand hurts a little." Qian turned her head to look at Man Bao's hand, only to realize that something was wrong, and immediately reached out to squeeze her wrist. Man Bao was so in pain that she immediately retracted her hand, twisted her body not to grab her, and tears couldn't help falling down. She cried, "It hurts, it hurts. This is the only way to label it. I can't help it. I'm too lazy to check how many thousands I have added. Anyway, the little goblins in the group have calculated it. Yunkai still owes 2 more updates. I can add 1 more update tomorrow. The big ones have added more." Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 278. The old Zhou family looked at Man Bao in astonishment. In the end, the slightly more experienced old Zhou squeezed his head. He was sure that it would hurt when he squeezed it, and he didn't exert much force before he said suspiciously, "Broken? How did you fall?" Man Bao recalled for a moment, but found that he couldn't remember. It just fell with a thud. "Shouldn't that be a sore butt? I was face down and my hands were under it." This Man Bao still remembered. Old Zhutu was not sure. "Why don't you take it to Dali village to see it? Anyway, it's not dark yet, walk a little faster, you should be able to come back at night. If your hand is broken, then there is no need to rush back, then you will just stay overnight at Fang's house." So the old Zhou looked at Thursday Lang and said, "Didn't you fall too? Just take your sister to see it, it's best if it's okay." Thursday Lang didn't have any objections. He stretched out his hand and asked his mother for money. Qian entered the house to get him money and said, "Go with your daughter-in-law. If you are staying overnight, of course, it is better to bring your daughter-in-law." Thursday Lang was even happier. Let Fang Shi simply pack up and lead Man Bao out. He was limping and walking slowly, apparently determined to spend the night. "Can you go by yourself? I don't want to carry you." Man Bao glanced at his butt and nodded understandingly. Now that her hand was hanging down, it didn't hurt at all. She asked Keek in her heart, "Is my hand broken?" The health of the host is still very important. It cannot scan other people's, but the scan of the host can reimburse energy consumption points with the main system, so it scanned and said, "No." When Man Bao heard this, he was very happy, and he simply threw his hands and strode forward, once surpassing Thursday. Thursday Lang was stunned, and couldn't help but say to Mrs. Fang, "She didn't lie to us, did she? This hand is thrown, where does it look like a broken bone?" Mr. Fang glanced at him and said, "Think everyone is like you." The little Qian family at home was a little worried, while the old Zhou poured a bowl of water and sat in the yard to drink slowly. Qian Shi didn't go back to the house, but sat with him in the yard and asked, "Man Bao's hand is really broken?" "Mostly it's a dislocation," old Zhou said with a smile. "It's better to let the 4th child take him to have a look, or let the old doctor fix it. It's better than letting him go. He still has this experience." As for cutting off her hands, that is to scare Man Bao, lest she always be rough and do not know the severity. "But I fell off the bed and dislocated." Old Zhou frowned and said, "Man Bao is also quite naughty, Why is he so unsightly? No one has ever fallen off the bed, and has never been dislocated. After hearing what he said so confidently, MRSGN knew that he was very sure, so he put his heart down. Dali village is not far from Kilai village. The three of them only brought a few things. They walked quickly and easily, but they arrived in a quarter of an hour. They didn't go to Fang's house first, but went directly to the old doctor. Although the door of the old doctor's house is open, he has stopped seeing the doctor. After all, it is already past the time for dinner, and everyone can go to bed after washing up. But when a patient comes to the door, he will still see it. Not only a doctor in the countryside like him, but even a doctor in the county town or even a pharmacy in Fukan would not drive patients out, unless they were looking at patients who were dying. So the old doctor quickly sat down from the backyard to the front hall. Seeing the three people walking in, he first glanced at Manbeo subconsciously, seeing that she didn't seem to be ill, then he looked at the limping Thursday Lang and asked, "Fald?" Chu Hulang was stunned for a moment, then quickly responded yes, but pushed Manbao forward, "But it's not me, it's my younger sister, doctor, can you see if her hand is broken?" The old doctor couldn't help but leaned forward a little. "You fell too?" Manbao stretched out his right hand and said, "The one who fell off the bed has crushed his hand." The old doctor sat up straight, shook her hand and asked amusingly, "Can you break your hand if you fall off the bed?" He touched it, asked a few words, and finally smiled, "It's not broken, it's dislocated, I'll fix it for you in a while." As he spoke, he shook Manbao's hand, and it was done with a click. Then he took out a bottle of medicinal wine from the medicine cabinet. "Here, take it back and apply it twice a day for 2 days. Manbao twisted himself, and found that the pain was not as bad as before, but it was still slightly sore. The old doctor didn't care, he wasn't a particularly powerful doctor, how could he restore his dislocated arm with a single click? The old doctor rubbed the medicine on Manbao once, then handed the rest of the medicine to Shiro, and finally stared at him. On Thursday, Lang first asked in a low voice, "Doctor, how much is my younger sister? If it's too expensive, he won't watch it here." The old doctor took it for granted and said, "Your younger sister is a frequent visitor. I only charge her for medicine, and only 30 when will do." As soon as Thursday's expression loosened, he touched his waist and said, "I fell, and my butt hurts, as well as my waist." The old doctor took Su Lang to the inner room to check it out, and he came out in a short while, and met Bao Baba's gaze. He said slowly, "It's all right, it's neither broken nor twisted, it's just badly bruised. Come on, take a 2-day break, and rub the medicinal wine frequently." The old doctor said, "Get another bottle of medicinal wine." Thursday Lang hurriedly dressed in the inner room and rushed out, saying, No, I'll just use the rest of Manbeo, and I also have medicinal wine in my house." "Okay, then just give 5 cents. Thursday Lang was happy, but instead of paying immediately, he pulled Mrs. Fang forward and said with a smile, "Doctor, why don't you help my daughter-in-law take a look?" The old doctor couldn't hide his surprise. He looked up and down Mr. Fang for a while and asked, "You fell too? Where did you fall?" Fang's face turned red. "Look at what you said, I have to fall and get hurt before I can find you," said Thursday with a smile. "I'll let you see if my daughter-in-law is pregnant." The old doctor figured it out. Fang she had been married for 2 months, so he stretched out his hand and said, "Sit down and I'll take a look." Mrs. Fang hurriedly sat down to give him a pulse. The old doctor closed his eyes halfway and put his hand on Fang's hand lightly. After a long time, he changed his hand and touched it for a while. The old doctor retracted his hand and said, "It's a bit like a slippery vein, but it's not too long, so go back to raise it first, and wait a month to see it again, but you should pay more attention to your daily life, and don't do heavy work, especially fetching water and carrying wheat. Work." On Thursday, Lang said, "Look at what you said, is our family a family that will let our daughter-in-law carry water and wheat?" The old doctor just smiled. In the countryside, women are the main force in carrying water. On the contrary, men who are more powerful seldom carry water because it involves the issue of face. There are very few families like the old Joe family that stipulate that men go to fetch water. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 279. But although he appreciated it, the old doctor still stretched out his hand and said, "Your daughter-in-law is also 5 cents. This is the most basic consultation fee, which is not much compared to the money that the doctor in the big pharmacy in the county town requires." The situation was better than he had expected. On Thursday, Lang happily counted out 40 went for him, and then went out to take a look at the fading sky. He glanced at the setting sun that hadn't completely disappeared from the horizon, and leaned on his waist and squatted to coax Manbao, "Manbao, can you sleep with me and your fourth sister-in-law at night? Food. Just say you don't want to go home, you just want to stay overnight." Manbao is not a fool, can't he hear what he means? Although Manbao felt that her bed was more comfortable to sleep in, she thought that she would use the fourth brother as an example in the future, so she nodded reluctantly and said, "Let's stay overnight, but fourth brother, why should we stay here? Obviously enough time to go home, even if it's a little dark when I get home, I'm not afraid." Thursday Lang looked around, and then hummed with Manbao, "Your fourth brother can't fall in vain, so I have to have a good talk with my father-in-law and mother-in-law." Mrs. Fang glared at him, "You are not allowed to use my parents as swordsmen." "But the old Geo family is too much. The villagers often go to my family's mountains to collect firewood and dig wild vegetables." "What did my family say? How can I find some wild mushrooms?" That's right, I didn't cut down the good trees on their mountain, so I was looking for some game, and they didn't plant it. Anyway, their family is so stingy, he must talk about it. He has nothing to do with Dolly Village, his Yu family can be here." So the couple led Manbao around to Fang's house. The Fang family's house is right behind the meat stall, in the middle of the busiest street, which is too good. Although it was getting dark, the Fang's yard was still lively, and there were many villagers gossiping. Seeing the little girl from the Fang family leading her husband home, they were stunned. "Why did Niu come back?" Fang's mother was being teased. Haha, she was shocked when she heard the words. She went out to see, and saw that her daughter was accompanied by her son-in-law, and she was followed by the Zhou family's treasure. She was relieved and said with a smile, "Why didn't you come back earlier? Have you eaten? Mother will cook you a meal." It is impossible to cook hot rice, how can there be leftovers at home, but it can be made fresh. Thursday Lang hurriedly said, "Mother, we've all eaten, don't worry about it. It's just that I fell and my parents were a little worried, so let me come over to see the old doctor when we're full." Only then did Mother Fang realize that Chu Yulang was limping, and asked with concern, "Where did you fall? What did the old doctor say?" Manbao moved him a stool very obediently, and Thursday Lang gave her an approving look, then leaning on his waist, he sat on the stool as cautiously as a woman who was 8 months pregnant, and sighed, "The one who fell in the mountains was fortunately fell, otherwise I would have been hacked to death." Originally thinking of their daughter and son-in-law returning home, the neighbors who couldn't stay any longer suddenly stopped, turned around and sat down, and asked enthusiastically, "What do you mean, who dares to cut you? Isn't this thinking of going to jail? Imprisonment is impossible, who would report to the officials for such a trivial matter? It can be solved at home." But the neighbors were right. Who would dare to cut off Shiro? His family has 6 brothers, and there are also many uncles in his family. Everyone was excited, and stared at Shiro with even more interest. Thursel Lang sighed and told him that he went to the mountains to find wild mushrooms today, and then he was kicked out. He sighed, I also know that Zhongshan is the two brothers of their Jiao family, they don't give us up the mountain to find game, we just don't go next time, but they didn't let us go this time, they just carried their hose and chased after them. Coming up, it scared me and my fifth brother at that time. Manbao squatted aside and listened with relish. Although she had heard it once, she found that the fourth brother's statement was completely different when she listened to it again. This was a completely new story. Manbao thought about it, this is what Keek said, she has to judge whether the patient is telling the truth or the truth. What the fourth brother said at home is definitely the truth, but what he said here is not entirely false. With a melancholy expression on his face, Shu Yulang held his waist and said, I was terrified at the time, I thought I had done something heinous, and I wanted to explain it to them, but they threw them away after only 2 words. When I got up, I ran a little faster when I panicked, but it rained just last night, and the mountain was a little slippery, so I fell down. At that time, half of my body was numb, and I was too scared. Alas, why do you think they didn't want to talk to me? Fang's mother exploded with anger when she heard this, slapped the table and said, is it really the people from the old Jiao family who are chasing you? Shiro nodded affirmatively. Fang's mother stared at Thursday and asked, are you just looking for game? That's for sure, said Thursday Lang in justice, mother, all kinds of pine trees and some twisted trees are the most abundant in the mountains. I'm not looking for game, what else can I do? It's impossible. Are you going to steal wood? He said, my family now has 5 shares of the land, and there is no shortage of wood. In the summer, I can't go to the firewood, and the firewood can be collected on the mountain at the entrance of our village. The people in our village are generous, as long as they don't cut it. Use the best wood, and cut down the rest of the trees. Everyone thinks about it, there are many families in Zhou, and there are many mountains. They can find any wood they want in their own mountains. Besides, the Zhou family's house had already been built, so wood was not needed at this time. For everyone, Kaofenchen is a place to provide good wood. If you don't steal good wood, then no matter what you do on the mountain, it will basically not violate the local ethics. Fang's mother got an accurate reply, and she was so angry that she patted the table and said, this heart is too poisonous. Is there still little firewood they cut from our mountain every year? Every spring, they go to our mountain to dig wild vegetables. I never said no, why can't my son-in-law go to the mountains to find some game? The other villagers also responded, this is too stingy. The mountain before their home was not far from the entrance of the village, and in the end, it was only after seeing the pine trees in the mountains that they were replaced. These years, they have been gathering firewood in winter and digging wild vegetables in spring. It was dug from the mountains of our families. That's right, let's not talk about it in spring. When you are gathering firewood in winter, you say that you are a charcoal burner, and you don't even use your own charcoal and chopped firewood to go to our mountain to grab firewood from us. Does that make sense? I've seen them dislike for a long time. Every year, charcoal is burned not far behind my house. No matter how many times I say it, it doesn't work. Because they burn charcoal. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 280. As long as there are neighbors, as long as your life is related to a second person, there can be no contradictions. The old Zhou family is harmonious enough, but the little Jian family sometimes quarrels with his sister-in-law. Thursel Lang often leaves the work to his brothers, and the older brothers occasionally bully his younger brother. Don't talk about quarrels, brothers have fought several times. Ankilai village is small. After a year, the villagers quarreled a lot about various things. Qian's family is enough of a Buddha. The year before last, he stopped at Jodalu's house for half an hour because of Manbao's affairs. And even went to the village chief. And Dali village is a big village. There are more than 130 households in this village, more than double that of Kilai village. There are more people, and of course there are more disputes. Moreover, unlike Kilai village, which mainly has the Zhou surname, the surnames in Dali village are very mixed. There are 8 or 9 surnames, and there are 3 or 4 relatively strong surnames. If the surnames are different, there will be more conflicts. The 2 Jia brothers mentioned by Thursday Lang are also famous in Dali village. Because there is a big market in Dali village, there are butcher shops, grocery shops, and many small businesses. There is a fair every 2 days. Even if everyone is used to bartering and cannot directly enter the copper coins into the account, they can make a fortune by taking the exchanged things to the county seat. Moreover, compared with other things, the food and cloth used for exchange have always been hard currency. Even in some parts of the county, these two are still used in exchange for things. Therefore, the villagers in Dali village generally live better than other villages. The 2 Jia brothers started burning charcoal 7 or 8 years ago, and they didn't know who they learned their skills from. When they came back, they dug 2 kilns in the open space next to the vegetable garden and started burning charcoal. They tried all kinds of wood, and finally found that pine wood is easier to burn, and the people in the city like it, so they specifically aimed at pine wood to chop. In addition to cutting from their own mountains, they also cut other people's mountains. Of course, if this firewood is brought back to the home to burn, there will be no problem for each family, but they are not very happy to cut it back to burn the charcoal and sell it to others. And there are also rules for cutting trees. If you cut too much at one time, you have to replant it for others. Otherwise, if you cut it like this, will there be trees on the mountain in a few years? Not to mention that the owner of the mountain does not agree, neither can the governor and the county officials. Therefore, the owners of several mountains that the Jia brothers took special care of had a trouble 7 or 8 years ago. It is also because of this that the Jia brothers chopped almost all the pine trees in their own mountains, and only then took aim at the mountains. Zhongshan is a little far from Kilai village, not too close to Dali village. It belongs to the junction of the 2 villages, and is even closer to Kilai village. The pine trees above are the most abundant and the most complete in the nearby mountains. So back then, the 2 brothers of the Jia family took someone to secretly go up for logging, and only made trouble after they were caught by Jodalu. In the end, I don't know what to say. The head of Dali village took back the original share of the Jia family's 2 brothers, and redivided the mountains to the Jia family, and then they allocated 40 acres of mountain from the share to Kilai village. This is over. This matter was a lot of trouble back then, because Kilai village was poor and small, and the village head brought the young villagers with hoes to negotiate with the head of Dali village and the Jia brothers, and the 2 villages almost fought. Back then, Thursday Lang was the same age as today's Saturday Lang. Although he didn't have to go, he still followed behind to join in the fun. So he knew too much how unpopular the Jia family was in Dali village. At this time, he tried his best to provoke them, and in order to amplify their evil deeds, Thursday Lang lifted his clothes without shame and showed everyone his lower back. It had been a while since he fell, and when all the traces appeared, I saw that his lower back was bruised and swollen, and some places were still purple-red, which looked very serious at first glance. The skin and flesh next to him were white and tender, and a group of aunts and daughters-in-law could not take their eyes off of him. Fang Shi was talking to her mother, and when she saw this, she took 2 steps forward and tore off the clothes, took the opportunity to twist him, but said with concern, "It's cold at night, what if I catch a cold? Put your clothes away quickly." The aunts withdrew their gazes regretfully, and Thursday Lang smiled, not feeling anything. When the weather is hot, it is not uncommon for them to jump into the river to take a bath. It's just that he's married now, so he doesn't act with the single young people in the village. Everyone has seen the injuries on Shirulang's body, and the crusade against the two Jia brothers has reached a climax. First, many of them have conflicts with the Jia family, and secondly, who makes Shirulang look good? Fang's mother also felt that her son-in-law was good-looking, so she was a little concerned about her son-in-law being seen, so when they finished talking, she invited everyone who came to visit. Of course, she didn't say it clearly, but asked her youngest daughter to take Shiro and Manbao to clean up the room for the night. As soon as everyone heard it, and then looked at the sky that had completely darkened, they all said goodbye to go home, and it was indeed time to go to sleep. But just after getting such a gossip, they didn't feel sleepy, so they decided to continue talking in another place. The conditions of Fang's family are good. The most important thing is that Uncle Fang has no children yet, so the Fang sisters' rooms are all empty. As long as they go back to their parents' house, they will have a place to live. Fang's family has only been married for 2 months, and her feelings for the family have not changed much. She still considers her family's home to be her own, so she goes into the kitchen and boils hot water for Shizalang and Manbao to wash. Fang's mother slipped into the kitchen and whispered to her, mainly asking how she was doing at Lao Zhou's house. Fang Mu also saw the little girl's actions just now, and guessed that she wouldn't be too bad, otherwise she wouldn't be able to reach out and grab Shiro, but she still had to talk about her. If you want to teach him a lesson, you have to go back to the house, or let outsiders see him and embarrass him more. It's not good for your mother-in-law to see it. Fang's face was slightly red, and he said, I know, mother. Fang's mother sighed contentedly. This marriage is really the right choice. It's not bad to marry in Qilai village, it's close. You see, the family didn't pick you up, you can go back to your mother's house 3 times, unlike you sister, come back once or twice a year, and leave after a half day. Mother, you dislike me and always come back. Nonsense, why do I despise you? I wish you would come back every now and then, as long as you were not driven back by your in-laws' family or quarreled and ran back when the daughter came home. Fang's mother was still very comfortable, and the old Zhou family also did it. Good, every time the child comes home empty-handed, even if he doesn't bring some tofu or something, he will carry 2 caddies of beans. For example, today, they came here with beans. However, I think Shiro was seriously injured just now. What did the old doctor say? Is it really okay?